Welcome to a special episode of Fourth and Frames. I'm Chris Battistel with my co-host Rhett Manuel, and tonight we welcome special guest Joe Pisapia from FantasyPros to the show as we continue our divisional previews, giving you a must, bust, and maybe from each team in the AFC East. Plus, we get into some of the fantasy football Blackbook. Let's get it popping. The stream, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell to get notified whenever the Fantasy and Frames team drops new content. Rate and review the podcast, and visit www.fantasyandframes.com, where you will find all of our written work, video work, rankings, everything you need to succeed this upcoming fantasy football season. And stick around after our show as the Dynasty 365 show with Stacey Perez and Tyler Heil are on right after us at the 9 o'clock hour. Now, let me bring in one of the most respected guys in the fantasy football space, creator of the relative position value tool, #1 best-selling author, award-winning host, classically trained actor, host of the Fantasy Pros podcast. Some might say the best fantasy analysts live somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but tonight, one of them is here with us, Mr. J-O-E to the P, Joe Pisapia. Welcome to the show.
I love that. That's a great intro. I'm just going to go now because everything else after this is just going to be a letdown. I don't want to let down the audience, but it's funny. An acting teacher of mine used to say that too. The best actor lives somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, because I had done a lot of classical theater. I had done stuff in England and I did stuff in the States. And then it was one of those things where, sometimes you don't understand, you take a little of everything at the end of the day. And I think that's always good. And that's why these shows are so great too, because you're getting all these different opinions from different people, and then people can go out there and make their own opinions. So thanks for having me. And it's always good to hang out with the Frames folks. So this is going to be great.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on the show. I got to ask off the top, what is a stage combat instructor, and is it as cool as it sounds?
It is. I did it for, a very long time, almost 15 years. So what a fight choreographer or, a stage combat professor was basically all the stuff you see on Game of Thrones, all the stuff you see in John Wick, all those things, you train, that's what people do. They train for those roles. They train for that stuff. So when I went to college, I had a choice. I could go to college on an acting scholarship, or I could go for baseball, and they were giving me a lot more money for acting. And I figured I'm 5'8". I'm probably not going to be a professional baseball player, but let me see how this acting thing works out. And now I talk about sports. So I guess it all kind of worked out at the end of the day.
Yes, sir.
But my college had a great stage combat program. So as a kid who grew up with Star Wars and, all that stuff, it was just like, you're going to give me swords. Like you're going to let me have this. This is a class that I can do. And I ended up obviously, coming from athletics, it just kind of made sense to me. And doing a lot of classical theater. It's how I first got my, equity card in the Actors Union, was in a Shakespeare festival because I could fight, and I got one of the roles there because it had fighting in it. But it was great, so funny, as time goes on, then, it was just something I got into. I took the national test and all the different weapons. So whether it be knife, whether it be rapier and dagger, sword and shield, doesn't matter. I can fight with it. So if you've seen it in Gladiator, if you've seen it in Last Kingdom, I saw that Chalupa was talking about Last Kingdom, any of that stuff. That's what I did. That's for a very long time. And then I taught at a very prestigious acting studio for about 10 years. And actually, some of my students went on to do some really great work. One of them is in the second John Wick movie, ironically. So nice. Cool stuff, man. So don't cross me, basically. That's the thing.
Nice.
You don't like my take, just keep it to yourself.
All right. Just chewing bubblegum and kicking ass. I love it.
That's right.
So, Joe,
I'm all out of bubblegum, Rhett. I'm all out of bubblegum.
Yeah, I got a quick question for you. So being with this stage choreography background that you have, gun to your head, what is your favorite choreographed fight scene of all time?
I'll tell you what the best one is, to be honest. Like there's some real, the one in Wick in the first one in the upstairs in the nightclub is very good. But the best thing I've ever seen, and so what happens is, you pick these things up, when you're in the business, and a lot of times you'll see, directors making up for people who can't fight, actors who can't fight, things like that, where they have these close and a lot of cutting and things like that. In Atomic Blonde, there's that long sequence in the apartment complex when she's going up through that. That is one of the most brutal, realistic, and what's so great about it is it's high-end choreography, but it's also a lot of found object fighting. It's also very realistic. It's very, they do a great job of playing the pain, but that sequence there is unbelievable. Last Kingdom has the best sword and shield, like full fighting I've ever seen, because that's how they really used to fight, with the swords and the spears and shields and things like that. You don't see a lot of that kind of recreation to that scale. That was really good too. But that one scene in Atomic Blonde, man, let me tell you, that is, and I credit to Charlize because she does her own stuff, which is astounding. But
no easy task.
Dancers were always the easiest. Give me a martial arts person, it was the worst, because they're your whole life to hit people.
Yeah.
And to teach you to hit, to throw a punch 6 inches away from somebody. It's the worst. Give me a dancer who understands choreography any day of the week. It was so much easier to get them to that next level. Always.
Oh, I love this. I love it.
Speaking of punching someone 6 inches away, you
Bob Harris, by the way, sat in on one of my classes once back in New York when I still taught. Yep. He came himself. He came to see him for himself. See, there you go.
He's in the studio. I love it. But speaking of punches 6 inches away, you also do a wrestling show. Is that right?
I do a wrestling podcast. Yeah.
Do you have
my
a
life
top
is
five?
very weird.
Do you have a top 5 wrestlers of all time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm a Shawn Michaels guy, so it's always got to put Shawn Michaels up there too. Best in-ring performer I think you've ever seen. Flair, I'm always a Flair guy. You have to put Austin in that category too, because he was the draw and he was that total package. Plus the story's good of a guy who was kind of at his lot. People forget Stone Cold Steve Austin, after he got released from WCW, he's floating around ECW and he's basically on his last legs as the ringmaster in WWE before he finally figures things out. And then, some of the, I got to tell you, like Seth Rollins right now, he's definitely one of these guys that I think is working his way there, because the in-ring work is, as a choreographer, that's what I'm so astounded by. And then the 5th spot, it's AJ Styles is one of those guys too, just phenomenal in-ring performer. And for how long he was that good. I could talk wrestling all day, and it's weird too. This is why my life is weird. The last 4 years on TV, I host a show every Sunday morning for football and baseball on Sports Grid Television with Matt Stryker, former WWE superstar, and play-by-play announcer. And then Eric Young is a good friend of mine. Like, it's just weird. Like, my life is weird. It's great. It's fun. This is the good part,
Yeah. I'm a big wrestling guy too. And I'm going to tell you my favorite guy of all time, because I never saw someone get so good so fast. I'm a big Kurt Angle guy, but I mean,
Angle is one of the all-time greats. And and Angle is so versatile because he had the comedy too. Because Angle could give you that serious in-ring stuff too, where he was really emotional and serious. I actually saw one of his dark matches in Philadelphia when I was in college, before he made TV. And my buddy knew him because he was from Pittsburgh, and I was there with him. He's like, "Oh my God, it's Kurt Angle, the Olympic champion." I knew he signed with them. That was before the internet really was like completely the way it is now. So that was really cool. And that match, him and Shawn Michaels, is one of the best ever. That's like top 5 matches ever. I think that's a phenomenal match.
I love it. Bob Harris, thank you for joining in. Hate to see you go. But one thing that Bob Harris started on this show, and it's a bit that we have with every guest that comes through, so we're not going to let you off the hook, is they sing a little hymn or rap. We had Joe Dolan rap. We had Nate Markham last week rap. So any chance we could get a little bar from you? No obligation. You can pass if you'd like.
No. I'll. What do you want me to sing? I mean, that's
the floor is yours. Anything,
whatever you want, man. That's the fun part.
Well, I mean, we want to stick in rock genre. There's probably, if you're saying like sing this, I could probably get there a lot faster. So many songs come to my head at one time. All right, what are we gonna do? Let's do. How about we do? I'm trying to think. I mean, that's the problem. Like literally, like everything just like floated to the front of my head just now. So what do we want? Have him sing a wrestling entrance. I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. No, I'm not gonna sing that.
It counts.
I don't know. I don't know why.
Bob Harris saying Marty Robbins, Howard Bender saying Judas Priest, I believe it was. Joe Dolan rapped Tupac. Nate Markham rapped Eazy-E.
Not bad. Not bad. I see Nate Markham wants me to do Shakespeare. I mean, I could do that too for you. That would certainly be different. Geez, let's do a little. We want to do a little Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters, it is.
Let's do a little Foo. How about a little Foo? Let's see. What Foo Fighter song should we sing here? I don't want to hold up the show. Why don't you guys start doing stuff? I'll pull up a Foo song that I want to sing, and then I don't know why it's a long day. So my brain, yeah, we could do My Hero. So let's do that one here. Let's do a little My Hero. And do we want accompaniment? Is somebody gonna sing something, or like no? This is gonna.
No, we don't sing on the show. Only the guests.
Acapella, baby.
All right. There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. There goes my hero. He's ordinary. How's that for you?
It was beautiful. Thank you. Drew's not here with us. He's our third, and he would say that's a mix of Baby Jesus and Fergie. So I love it. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Freebird. See, that's a good one too.
Yeah. There's so many good options that you could roll with at this point.
I like Simple Man. Mama told me when I was young, sit beside me, my only son. You can do this. Yes, you can, Brett. If you try. All right, let's do some football. Here we go.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh man, how do we move on from that? How do we
I don't know. I mean, we can just do it. We can do a acoustic. I don't know why, dude. I'm sorry. Like my brain, like everybody who knows me knows that like if you get me at nighttime, like my brain is fried from the day of doing shows and talking. So literally, I just had giant everything just went to one thing in my brain, and I couldn't access any lyrics for anything for a moment there, which is sad because I'm a big music guy. But
you did great. You did great. But
we'll take requests during the show.
Exactly. Call in the radio hour. Anyone that's watching on Twitter, we cannot see your comments, so head over to the YouTube, drop some comments in, ask your questions. We will answer them as we go through the show. But let's get into why we are here. A must bust, and maybe from every AFC East team across the board. We got the Patriots, Dolphins, Bills, and the New York Jets, who are going to be featured on Hard Knocks. A lot of stuff going around the New York Jets right now. But we know that you're a New England Patriots fan, born in Brooklyn, raised in Brooklyn, New England Patriots.
I know it's
fan.
Weird. I know
it's weird.
It's
almost
a crazy story.
Religious.
Maybe if there's time, we'll do it. We'll see.
But Joe, give us your must draft from the New England Patriots.
Well, this is the easiest. This is the layup of all layups. It's Ramondre Stevenson, and that's might be the only guy that I'm excited about. And rightfully so. If you see right now in camp, you'll see that no one's really. They're not giving him the ball. He's sitting on the sidelines. They're massaging his toes, making sure everything is good. Like it's just put your feet up, Ramondre, and just relax, because it's pretty clear he's the guy, and it's pretty clear that this offense is going to funnel through him. And last year was a hot mess, and everybody knew it was going to be a hot mess, and it turned out to be a hot mess. So nobody should be surprised. So if you made investments in the offense of the Patriots last year, I don't know what you were thinking about. It was not a good situation with who they brought in to call plays, or the lack of play calling there. Bill O'Brien coming back makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. Bill O'Brien coming back gives you a steady presence there, somebody who's been there, someone who's gotten them to Super Bowls. So, Mac Jones, I don't think is as bad as you saw last year. I think surrounding him with better talent would be great. I don't think Juju is an enormous upgrade, but the one thing you come back and look at Stevenson is this. He caught 69 balls last year. If he comes close to that again with 1,000 yards rushing, which he's going to have, and he's that kind of a weapon in this offense, I think you can probably double that touchdown total this year. I think it's going to be much different. So all of a sudden, if you bump Ramondre Stevenson up to 10 or even 12 touchdowns after the 6 he scored last year, you're talking about a very different fantasy asset. He's going basically, somewhere in the second round, maybe, in the 10-team league, the early third. He's still a value, in my opinion, too. And when you're looking at some of these other running backs here with some questions going on about Jonathan Taylor, some questions about Josh Jacobs, Ramondre's looking better and better as a second-round pick to me. So I've taken him wherever I can, wherever I get a shot to, where it makes sense. Even though I'm an early wide receiver build guy, if Ramondre's there and it makes sense, then I'm in. But I think that one's easy because you know what you're getting, you know what he is to this offense, and when you can identify those players that control the scoring in their offense, that's how you control a lot of fantasy points. And that's always a good thing, whether it be quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts or whether it be guys like Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, I love it. Who is the RB2 in that backfield? We've seen reports coming out of New England that they've given the reps to Kevin Harris, Pierre Strong, Ty Montgomery's been in the mix. But who do you see as the guy as maybe the handcuff with Ramondre?
Nobody. There's no, I mean, that's it. It's Ramondre or bust because nobody can do what he can do in this offense. I know Harris has some decent cred, but Pierre Strong might be that James White-ish, that role goes all the way back to the Kevin Falk days. You always go back to the old school Patriots. That role has always been in that offense. It's been many incarnations and many different guys over the years. But I could see Pierre Strong being that guy. He's a speedy guy, catches the football well, had a decent college career, smaller guy, but fast. They did get a little faster with guys like Strong and Tyquan Thornton, but the problem is they're not giant playmaker kind of guys you have in there every down. And that's what this offense lacks. And the game is passing Belichick by. The more they continue to not go after these guys, and they've tried, they've whiffed, and we'll see if that changes in the next couple of years, but there's no handcuff there. Only in deeper leagues are even looking at a guy like a Pierre Strong, maybe for some PPR love, but it's going to be the Ramondre Stevenson show.
Yeah, I love it. Rhett, give us the bust from the New England Patriots coming into the 2023 fantasy football season.
And it's with a bullet because really there's only one other guy who I have hard interest in possibly looking at, but that's my man, McCorkle Jones. First off, I just love calling him McCorkle and not Nike because it is hilarious. But anyway, let's get into the details on it. Current FantasyPros ADP, 208 overall, quarterback 27. That comes out to around 18. In the value-based drafting, he's also quarterback 27, so not much of a change there. His projections are a little bit over 3,000 yards, under 20 touchdowns, over 10 interceptions, less than 200 rushing yards, roughly about 219 fantasy points. So nothing about Max screams, we need to go get this guy. Now, was looking at the Blackbook, and they said it's a make or break year. And frankly, I agree because like Joe just said, they did really everything they could to try to upgrade their skill positions this offseason and really kind of did it with a thud with Juju, who is good, not great. Mike Gesicki, who is athletic, but not anything special. Ramondre being the only real asset who might touch the ball, Lord knows, 300, 350 times. Who the heck knows if he doesn't fall apart first. But that being said, with Mac Jones, people talk about the terrible year he had last year. But for the terrible year he had, he also ended up with 4 quarterback 1 finishes last year, which isn't a great number, but it probably surprises some people considering that he actually ended up being that good despite his 6.8 yards per attempt. And like we said, there is a real offensive coordinator with real experience and real tools in Bill O'Brien. But the question that we have to ask is, are those so upgrades enough to make him outperform that QB 27 position that he's in right now? I'm not sure about that. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season for Mac Jones. Like you said, it's the make or break one for him going into 2024. If they finish middle of the pack, I'm not too sure what they're going to do or what they're going to be able to do at the quarterback position, either swing a trade or pick someone up free agency. If they finish in that middle, there's not going to be a real draft asset that they're going to be able to roll with. They got the what's the young guy's name? It's slipping my mind at the moment.
Zappy.
Bailey Zappi.
How dare you?
Yeah,
7,000 touchdowns this last year in college. It was amazing.
Exactly. He broke Joe Burrow's record there for passing touchdowns in NCAA. So he's going to have someone always nipping at his heels. Bill Belichick's going to always hold his guys accountable. Doesn't matter who you are if you're not doing your job. So bust. I could see him bust, but maybe bust up based on his ADP. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to say.
Right.
Yeah. So the must draft for the New England Patriots is Ramondre Stevenson. The bust is McCorkle Jones, Mac Jones. And I'm going to give you the maybe in this offense. As much as I wanted to be Kayshon Boutte, we finally saw a uplifting article come out saying he's finally starting to get into motion. But the The training camp darling is fellow 6th-rounder wide receiver Demario Pop Douglas. He's in a room that is starving for someone to come in and carve out a role. The 5'8" shifty wide receiver is studying the guys before him, whether it's Troy Brown, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola. He's putting in the work he needs to earn a spot on that starting lineup. He's already getting reps with the first team. They're lining up all over the field, out of the backfield. He's getting praise from Bill Belichick, who's one of those guys who isn't just going to give you a bunch of coach speak in the preseason. In college, 172 receptions, over 2,000 yards, 16 total touchdowns with Liberty. He's a willing blocker. He pops on tape. He garners the respect of opposing defenses. When you watch those games at Liberty, they didn't play a lot of press coverage on him because he was so shifty. He was so quick out of his cuts, and he's a willing blocker. He's going to be doing the dirty work in the Bill O'Brien scheme, which will attack matchups and utilize the outside wide receivers to make room for the inside wide receivers like Juju Smith-Schuster, like Demario Douglas. I could see some decent production out of his rookie year. He isn't a guy you want to go up and necessarily reach for in your drafts. But if he's there for the last pick and you kind of want to maybe just take a shot, stash him on your bench, beat that week 1 waiver rush, Demario Douglas could be the guy that's going to do that for you. You know a lot about Demario Douglas there, Joe?
Well, look, I know so far he's impressed in camp, and I think that's always something to pay attention to. The trouble is, again, how prolific is this offense and the offensive ecosystems, as Matt Harmon always likes to say. And I think that's, when you're paying attention to guys like Rashee Rice and Justin Ross and, who are the lower pieces right now who could really push in offenses like Kansas City, those are the guys that I'm looking for. Now, Douglas could be one of these guys that becomes an early watch guy or maybe even an early waiver wire pick. But to put draft capital in him right now, I don't think it's something I'm ready to do yet. I think it's a little early for that, but I think it's definitely something to watch. He's a smaller guy too. That's the other thing too. You're not sure how much he's going to be those 5'8" guys. And look, somebody's got like I love Zay Flowers, and he ain't much bigger. but Zay Flowers is special. Like that's a special dude. So look, maybe they got a good one here, and it would be nice if they did. But again, it's how much are they going to throw the football? What kind of offense is going to be? This is going to be another run the ball, play defense kind of Patriots team. And they're going to grind it out, and they're going to play that old school kind of football. And that's going to be their MO. So, when you have the 3rd or 4th option on the Patriot team like that, I would say a guy like Gesicki is actually more interesting because they're playing a lot of 12 personnel already in camp. And I think that Gesicki fits a lot of what they might want to do potentially. And I think he could be very good for Mac Jones. Gesicki's got good hands. He was completely miscast in Miami with the new offense. It's just not his skill set. So Gesicki becomes a really interesting guy that I think if you're punting on tight end, you take a shot on Chig, you take a shot on, Gesicki, get a bunch of those guys and see who pans out.
Yep. I like it. Gesicki and Hunter Henry have been getting a lot of good praise.
And Jay, I'm 5'8". So, I'm not playing the NFL either. So
some of us are even smaller.
That's Biggie. That's one of our FP folks. Biggie.
And some of us are 6'3". But anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
All right. That's the New England Patriots must bust. And maybe next we're going to drive into one of the more high-flying teams in the division, the Miami Dolphins. Rhett, give us the must draft for the Miami Dolphins, brother.
Did we really have to ask this question? Because it's Tyreek Hill, right? Like, no one's questioning the fact that whether or not it's Tyreek Hill or whether it's somebody else, because it's freaking Tyreek Hill. A guy who in the value-based drafting on FantasyPros is 12 overall. In their actual rankings consensus, he's number 4.5 PPR. He's number 7 in standard and full PPR. So any way you slice it, this guy is being seen as a first-round draft pick. It doesn't matter. Pick the format. You want to go PPR, it doesn't matter. He's the man. He's projected for another 100-catch season, another 1,400 yards, 8 touchdowns, 250 fantasy points. We've seen it since KC. He gets downfield. They get it to him deep. He goes up and gets it somehow, some way, and everything is wonderful. He's got that league-winning upside we all look for, and also that consistency at the same time. Last year, he had 8 wide receiver 1 finishes, 6 finishes where he was either a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. So that's 14 of your 17 weeks where he was giving you starter upside. You're not going to get much better than that at all. Had 170 targets last season, and that was with Tua missing what? How many games was it? 6 games or so?
Yeah.
Like Tua missed a lot of time, and he still had 170 targets. And Tua's back. We hope he's okay, but we'll see where that goes. Does not have a favorable schedule to start the year, but it gets much better after that. I believe their strength of schedule is pretty light for him, so stay the course. Was wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game last year. Now he is 29, and he says he is retiring in 2 years. That's the current rumor. But keep in mind, we're talking about redraft right now, and we are not worried about 2 years from now. Let's get it right now. And if he falls a little bit outside of that first round into the late first round, you draft Tyreek Hill no matter what. He's the man. He's a must. Go get him.
Gator J asked a good question. With the Cup injury, does Hill move in front of him in your rankings, Rhett?
Yeah, with the questions to be about Cooper Kupp, whether he's going to be healthy or not. If we go into the regular season and Cooper Kupp misses a couple weeks, or if we do what the Rams think the Rams might do and shut him down with a mysterious toe injury in week 7, then it becomes Tyreek Hill over Cooper Kupp all day. Now, if you're talking about a fully healthy Cooper Kupp who starts the regular season, goes 17 and ends up with 180 targets or whatever it's going to be, then you almost have to go Kupp in that situation. But with the injury, it's very close, and I might lean Tyreek. Might.
What about you, Joe?
Look, Tyreek Hill's already ahead of Cooper Kupp in my ranking, so I'm the wrong guy to ask. But again, why is that? It's because, okay, am I betting on the health of a 35-year-old quarterback with back issues and neck issues, or am I betting on the younger quarterback who, yeah, the concussions were a definitive issue last year. There's no doubt about it. But where do I want to put my money? Cooper Kupp hasn't always been the picture of health either. Let's not pretend like he has. And I don't even mean, last year. I'm talking about even prior years before the incredible historic season that Cooper Kupp had. So what's so interesting about the Dolphins is it's very easy offense to target. You know exactly the 2 pieces you want, and then basically you can have everything else. So the 170 targets will be tough to repeat, but again, that's what this offense is. It's just getting the playmakers the football, and you've got 2 great ones. So as long as everybody, those 2 guys and the quarterback stay healthy, it's pretty easy what that funnel really looks like. It's pretty easy to see.
Yep. I agree with all of that. Now, the bust might come as a little bit of a spicy take because the hype train for this guy has been rolling recently. And for me, it's Devon Achane, a player that seems to be everybody's fantasy darling. And I think it's gotten a little bit out of control. 5'9", 188 pounds, which just gives me the ick when it comes to running backs. It's just too undersized for me to invest any kind of real draft capital into him. He's going to have games where he's going to pop off just because of the scheme that they run there in Miami, that outside, that wide zone running scheme. It's going to open up lanes to be able to get him bounce outside and running upfield. But he was only RB14 amongst qualifying running backs last season in the NCAA in yards after contact. And over the past 7 years, only 11 running backs that weigh below 200 pounds have finished in the top 25 of scoring, and only 5 of them have been under the 190-pound mark. I'm not saying that he can't be that guy, because if you break it down, he's going to have the opportunity. He's got Raheem Mostert, who's often injured, ahead of him. He's got Jeff Wilson, who's still often injured, ahead of him. I just don't know that they're going to be able to get him the ball enough for him to be that relevant. And when you look at the pass catching options that they have in Miami, you got Waddle, you got Tyreek Hill, like we just mentioned. And then outside of that, Tua isn't really a check down quarterback. He was QB 30 in the league, only checking down on 8% of his throws. He would benefit more from Skylar Thompson throwing the rock, who was QB 1 in that category, dumping down right around the 40% mark of his passes. So the the pass catching option is going to be viable for him, but it's not going to produce as much as we would hope for it to produce for Devon Achane. So with a lot of factors needed to go his way in order for him to succeed and be that guy that people are drafting him for, I'm just going to stay away from the situation. I'm going to let someone else draft them. Like Red said, the schedule is kind of not the greatest for the Miami Dolphins in the first bit of the season. So there could be a part of the season where he's just game scripted out of the game and he's not utilized like we would hope. He is a guy that mid-season I would try to maybe acquire in a trade if I'm looking for some depth at the running back, or he starts off slow and I can get him at a little bit of better value once the season starts rolling. But in terms of draft capital, I'm probably just going to stay away from him. I'm not going to touch him. And for me, based on that, that's why Devon Achane is a bust.
Look, if there's one offense with that specific system where Achane could be good, it's this one.
That's the only thing for me.
That's the hang up.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you. And I think the bust moniker too is just the muddy backfield, right? Because you got Mostert still, you got Jeffrey Wilson. I'm still waiting for Dalvin Cook to show up because I still think if they had Dalvin Cook, that really, and I know he's been to the Jets and been all these places, but I just wish everybody would just come together and just realize that this is a really good marriage. Yeah. And having Dalvin Cook brings a lot of stability potentially to keeping Tua healthy. It takes a lot of pressure off him. But I can't disagree with you on Achane because he is a smaller guy. He's not going to touch the football as many times as you might hope. He does have that playmaking ability, so he might be a fun like DFS flex dart throw in the right position against a team that struggles against guys who catch the ball in the backfield. But if there's one offense where they can figure out how to use him, it's this one. But those running backs, I'm just staying away from all of them.
Yeah, like best ball, he could be that best ball darling where you're just going to draft him, and then those games that he goes off, he's going to be injected into your lineup. Like you said, DFS guy, if you're attacking the situation, you're attacking the matchup, he could be that guy for you. It's just there's so many factors working against them we than that one main factor that's working for him is that Miami Dolphins offense and the scheme that they like to use with their running game. So we got the must draft for the Miami Dolphins in Tyreek Hill. We got the bust draft for Devon Achane. Joe, give us the maybe in this offense for the Miami Dolphins.
Look, I like to play the games, but really the only maybe here is Tua, and it's maybe in a super flex where you take the discount of what you might get because there's fear in the marketplace with him. But that's really the only maybe. I told you, this is a very simple offense. I want Tyreek Hill, I want Jalen Waddle, and I want to stay away from pretty much the rest of it. But Tua in a super flex at the right value has a lot of upside, especially if you already have a really good quarterback in that first spot as your second quarterback, as your super flex QB. Then I'm intrigued by that. But he's my only maybe. And again, it comes with a huge question mark. Now, the one thing I will say is I think Mike White showed himself pretty well. Piggy's going to love this in the chat. He's a big Jets fan. So they would say that, if you have the opportunity there where unfortunate things happen and Mike White has to take over, I feel pretty good about Mike White. So that would be one of those things where, all right, I would spend fab, I would pick him up, or in deeper super flex leagues, I would maybe just add Mike White just to give myself a little bit of insurance for the first few weeks. I think always drop him and move on. It's not something I would say you do, but in a 14-team super flex, you do crazy things sometimes like that. You hedge on the Jacoby Brissett's, you hedge picks on the Taylor Heineke's of the world because those jobs might turn over faster than you realize. But that's the one for me. It's Tua. Tua is the one for me that I think is a maybe.
Yep. I agree with that. So we gave you the must, bust, and maybe from the Miami Dolphins. Next, we're going to move to one of the hottest news teams, I guess, in the NFL right now, the New York Jets, featured on Hard Knocks. We are less than 24 hours away from actual NFL football with the Hall of Fame game rolling tomorrow with the Jets and the Browns. I don't care if it's Kellen Mond throwing the ball. I don't care if it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson throwing the ball. I'm ready to watch some NFL football. I got my popcorn ready. I'm ready to roll. And my must draft out of this Jets team, it's pretty simple. The must have been pretty simple, straight across the board. It's Garrett Wilson. There was that report of the rolled ankle in training camp, but I think they're just going to rest him. They're not going to let him do any more drills, no preseason games. Just get him healthy for that week one. And it's old faces in new places with the addition of multiple time MVP winner quarterback Aaron Rodgers. They traded Elijah Moore in the offseason to the Browns, so the competition isn't really that stiff. He's coming off a Rookie of the Year campaign where he put up over 1,000 yards with Mike White, Joe Flacco, CFL legend Chris Streveler, and Zach Wilson. And I'm expecting a huge year from Garrett Wilson with Rodgers under center. 6 in total targets last season with 147. If he had a more accurate QB throwing him the ball, he could have easily finished with a much better fantasy production season. He only caught 83 of those targets. When you look at the correlation of the targets turn into quality targets, it will tie into elite production. The few guys ahead of him in total targets, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, and Stephon Diggs, were all at the top of their position when it comes to fantasy wideouts. Now that he's got a competent, accurate quarterback throwing him the ball, and we've all seen the highlights from training camp, I believe Garrett Wilson has a solid chance. Again, health is a big part of it. A solid chance to finish as a wide receiver one, not the wide receiver one, but a wide receiver one coming at the end of the season. Between weeks 7 and 14 last year, he was averaging 16 points per game, 16 full PPR points per game, and he was wide receiver 13 from that time. It'll be the pivot from Zach Wilson and all those other guys. When he was with Zach Wilson, he was only averaging 8.6 full PPR points per game, and he's getting one of the best red zone accurate generals in the game with Aaron Rodgers, and that makes Garrett Wilson a must draft for you coming in to the 2023 fantasy season. Pig Bird Jet fan, if only my wife loved me as much as Chris loves him some Garrett Wilson. I'm sorry that your wife does not love you that much, but I do love Garrett Wilson that much, and I'm hyped for it. The connection is only growing between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, and as that situation continues to mold itself, you're going to get the elite production for him. But Garrett Wilson must draft. Joe, give us the bust for the New York Jets.
I'll say ditto on everything you said about Garrett Wilson. I'm all in this year, and it's going to be really good. Again, it's very simple. You know exactly where the ball's going to. The best one for me with the Jets is tough because, once again, this is very simple. It's Breece Hall, who's going at a decent value in terms of risk reward. Garrett Wilson, who we're all very high on. Rodgers and Superflex is kind of just appropriately priced. So there really isn't a bust that really stands out. However, I do feel like people are trying to talk themselves into Tyler Conklin, who I like as a player. I just don't think there's enough balls to go around for him. That's the thing. Like, he might have a couple decent games here or there, might get a touchdown here or there, but I don't see them really being a steady diet of funneling the ball to tight end. They're going to run the football. They're going to play defense. They're going to get the ball to Garrett Wilson. Lazard will be that chain mover kind of guy. Mecole Hardman will be the guy that takes off the top off the defense. Mm-hmm. Corey Davis will be the guy who, takes the top off the water cooler because he's sitting out because he's hurt. And then after that, I just don't think there's any balls left for Conklin. So he might, like I said, in a certain matchup play as a streaming tight end in a certain week, on bye weeks, I get it. But convincing yourself that he's a guy that, that's my look, no. Gesicki, Kmet, Chigakonkwo, those are the guys at the end of tight end one that are interesting. Greg Dulcich is another one too, who I think could really surprise people this year. Even like Trey McBride, I think has a lot more upside this year potentially than Tyler Conklin does. So people in those tight end premium formats, whatever it is, I don't think you're going to really push for Tyler Conklin. But I'm starting to see people asking me questions. Hey, why can't Aaron Rodgers? I'm like, why? Because of all the prolific tight ends that Aaron Rodgers had made in the last 15 years. Come on, guys, what are we doing here?
I'm taking the top off a water cooler just to let you know. All right,
it's yours. Let's go.
That was cool.
You see it. He catches the ball in preseason. It was all Corey Davis. I'm telling you, no, he's not. He's not the guy. This is not a hot take. He's not the guy.
He's not that guy. He's not that guy, pal.
No.
Is Dalvin Cook reportedly as likely headed to the New York Jets or the Miami Dolphins? Still good in your eyes, Joe?
Look, it's good for both those teams, especially the Dolphins. It's bad for Breece Hall fantasy value-wise, because what that's going to mean is the first 6 weeks of the season, you'll have easy, let's take our time with Breece Hall. And it's so funny. Here we are, right? It's the 2nd of August, and we're talking about Breece Hall, maybe with Dalvin Cook coming in and worrying about him. And then there's Javonte Williams, who nobody thought we would have. All of a sudden he's like, yeah, I'm good. I just blew out every ligament in my knee. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm going to play week 1. I mean, I have no idea. It's a crazy thing in the NFL sometimes.
It really is. Modern science works wonders yet again. I mean, it's just, everyone was saying that Javonte Williams wasn't even going to touch the field until late middle of the season. They picked up Samaje Perine. Perine's going to be the guy in that offense. Don't even bother picking up Javonte
those
Williams.
People who had best ball drafts in June and July who took all this Samaje Perine, they're not happy. But Javonte, look, man, I love Javonte. I think Javonte is a really good player. So he's still a huge discount in drafts, but 3 weeks from now, I don't know what that price is going to be. We got the big flex draft coming up this weekend, the big Jake Seeley league. So I'm going to defend my my super flex title in that one. So I get to raise the belt the second time in that one. That's a tough room. Two times. It's a tough room too. It's like Eisenberg and Radcliffe and Seeley and like this is you win those and Adam Ronis, who's like the best there is. Like he's just the 2 times I've won that league, both times the finals was Adam Ronis, and like he's just the best. But that's what I mean. Like that, that room, forget ADP goes out the window. Everyone just takes their guy. It's a very different kind of forget that stuff. I can't even worry about that.
I love it. Rhett, give us the maybe for the New York Jets heading into the 2023 season.
I mean, we boiled it down. It's a simple offense, like Joe said. I mean, it's Garrett Wilson, it's Breece Hall, and it's the quarterback who's going to be a gigantic maybe in Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's going currently round 10 ADP, quarterback 15, so right below that QB1 line. Like Joe said, appropriately valued considering what he's coming off of last year, considering he was quarterback 21 last season. So, you get that bump, the trade, exciting new environment, everything makes sense. Not much difference between there and his current place in the value-based rankings in FantasyPros. I think it's 111 versus 114, so 3 down overall. So just pick your poison. It doesn't really matter. Probably has another 4,000-yard season on deck because of where he is and the fact that they have to play faster this year, right? I mean, Matt LaFleur, since when he was in Green Bay, they were just playing like super slow and, just almost letting Rodgers manage that game. We know he has those goods. We know it's Garrett Wilson, it's Breece Hall. Is it maybe Dalvin Cook too? Probably not, but let's just go ahead and ask the question anyway. The question is for me, at that quarterback 14, 15 ADP, I need to ask Joe the question, what is it going to take for him to outperform that and become a QB1 and possibly outperform this and give people some value? What is it going to take? Is it going to be 85% of the old Rodgers, 90%? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, look, I think his ceiling is 10, and that would be really generous. Like that would be Aaron Rodgers, fountain of youth, massive amounts of high Nosco, whatever the hell the crap he's taking. Like, because you got to look at the other guys ahead of him too. It's like they have to, we're starting to inch up into that Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence territory, and I just can't see that happening. Because I think the Jets at the end of the day are not that far off from what the Patriots are, which is we're going to play defense, we're going to run the football, but we have Garrett Wilson, so we do have that one alpha weapon. Look, I've already invested in the Jets to win this division, which I know sounds like a crazy thing, but that defense is already playoff worthy. They had the 29th ranked team in terms of points scored last year. They had atrocious quarterback play last year at times. If you just manage the games, and Aaron Rodgers is more than capable of doing that at this point, especially everything's a feel-good thing for Aaron Rodgers right now. I think Buffalo's defense has taken a big step back in the last year and a half. I think that the Patriots are still obviously the Patriots, and they have a lot of things lacking. Great defense, but still offense don't have a lot to speak of. And Miami is volatile. They're a volatile stock. So I think there's every reason to believe that the Jets could win this division if they just keep it simple. And by keeping it simple, I can't imagine getting a lot of shootouts with a lot of teams too, with the way that defense gets after the quarterback. And and if they do sign a Dalvin Cook, that's definitely not, because then it's really telling you they're going to be very careful and measured about how they do things. They're going to not turn the football over. And then as soon as the Jets make the playoffs, I hope Piggy, you're listening to this one, Jet fan. As soon as they make the playoffs and they're the home favorite, I'm going to bet against them and make even more money, because I know Aaron Rodgers is going to choke in the playoffs, because that's what he always does. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a fun ride. Nothing makes me happier than a Jet fan with expectations. It's my favorite thing.
That's great stuff. The Jets fans were absolutely heated if you follow any kind of Jets Twitter, they were heated. The memes coming out against Sean Payton were just some of the most
He's right.
memes.
He's right.
He is right.
Daniel Hackett was the most unprepared joke of a head coach I've ever seen. Okay, outside of Urban Meyer. So that's the bar. So Urban Meyer's the bar. Hackett was one step above that. He was one rung up. It was atrocious last year. It was embarrassing. The lack of preparation, the lack of game plan they had. So Payton aired him out. You know what? Go, please. I mean, and in terms of him being the coordinator, let's be honest. Aaron Rodgers is calling the plays there. Let's not pretend
it's
like
the Aaron Rodgers offense. 100% agree with that. 100% agree with that. All right. We've given you the must, bust, and maybe from the New England Patriots, from the New York Jets, and the Miami Dolphins. Now we got the divisional champions, Buffalo Bills. And Joe, we're going to give you the softball here to end it off. The must draft for the Buffalo Bills is, and why is it, Dawson Knox?
It's not Dawson Knox, and it's not Stephon Diggs, who I think a lot of people would say is probably that must. It's still Josh Allen for me, because the reason is this: he controls most of the scoring still on his own team, whether he's throwing touchdowns or whether he's rushing them in. Sure, lots of good buzz coming out about James Cook, and a lot of Damian Harris helium could possibly be there too, because that's the thing. They had struggled so much evening out this offense and finding balance, but whenever they found balance, that's when they were always at their best. And you can't be a playoff team with success in Buffalo in January unless you learn to run the football. You just can't do it. And they just continuously pound their head against the wall with it. But, Diggs with some of the weird antics in the offseason a little bit, I don't know what's going on there. All I know is this: Josh Allen is going to score fantasy points. Josh Allen controls the points of this offense. So if you want your must-have guy, it's Josh Allen. And Diggs, Diggs is on the board, the same spot where AJ Brown is, and I'm taking AJ Brown every single time. So that to me is a no-brainer. CeeDee Lamb's another guy too I would take over him, but ADP is still living in last year, in the last couple of years. I want to live in 2023. I want to be ahead of the curve, and I want those guys who are on those ascending situations, not the ones that are, Diggs has been in the league a long time. Let's be honest here. It's like 2015. So, I mean, that's a long time here. So I'm not saying he's going to bust out, but I'm saying he's not the sure thing you might think he is at the ADP.
I dig it. Rhett, give us the bust draft player for the Buffalo Bills heading into the 2023 fantasy season. I see you're ready. You're just chomping at the bit to give us this one, brother.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put my analyst hat on with this one, because I tend to get emotional about Gabe Davis for all the wrong reasons. Because Gabe Davis is one of these guys that has hung his hat on really spike weeks in one game, the famous 4-touchdown game where everybody's like, Gabe Davis, he's next. Matter of fact, there was a notification came right before the podcast tonight where Stephon Diggs says Gabe Davis is going to have a breakout year. We're still hearing Gabe Davis is next. And FantasyPros value-based drafting tends to agree with that, because in the expert rankings, he's wide receiver 41. In the value-based drafting, he's at wide receiver 38. So they see something that I don't. And the projections tell us that he's going to have a Gabe Davis year. 51 catches, 825 yards, 6 touchdowns. And if we're looking at his season last year, because we talked about living in 2022, yes, there were 3 wide receiver 1 finishes. And yes, there was a wide receiver 1 overall finish. There was also, let me round these off for y'all, a wide receiver 68.
Rhett's got receipts, everybody.
68, 84, 55, 67, 66, 58. So he's volatile, and he's heading into the toughest wide receiver schedule in the league this coming season. Now, he is currently being drafted at about 100 overall, so Gabe Davis will be rostered because we all love his upside. We love a 24-year-old guy who's 6'2" and 230 and can get upfield and do his thing. We know the size, we know the speed, we know he's got a great quarterback. We know he has guys around him that can take the pressure off of him. He has it all, but his volatility and his schedule scares me. So, Joe, I'm going to ask you like Stephon Diggs asked us, is this the year for Gabe Davis?
Here's the thing with Gabe Davis, and I was on Gabe Davis last year because it made a lot of sense. He was also a go-to guy early in his career for Josh Allen in the red zone, which to me was a very big deal that I think a lot of people weren't talking enough about. Like I think he had 7 touchdowns, I think, in his first year, right? He had more touchdowns than he should have. And he was like that go-to guy. And I think that's always something to pay attention to. Watching Gabe Davis last year, the thing that really stuck out to me, right, was his failure in big spots. If you go back to that game against the Chiefs, right, those big drops that he had. I think when you have the failure in big spots, what happens is the coordinators, the quarterback, they tend to shy away from you then. And when they shy away from you, especially when other big spots present themselves, it becomes very complicated. Now, he's going right now currently as the wide receiver 41 in the consensus ADP. And I can tell you right now at that ADP, he is not going to be on any of my rosters because the guys around him are guys like Elijah Moore, who I think is a fascinating piece that I think the Browns are going to find ways to get the football to. We're talking about Zay Flowers, a guy that I'm already give me Zay Flowers all day long. I'm telling you right now, I want all the Zay Flowers. I think when you have guys who are interesting like Quentin Johnston, some of the other rookies too, JSN is going around there, even boring ass Juju Smith-Schuster in a PPR league. I'd rather have him than Gabe Davis because, again, Gabe Davis, like you said, might have a couple of those splash games, but the biggest thing to me was until he shows me that he's ready for those big moments, I keep coming back to those games. And the Chiefs one it really stuck with me last year. It's like, that's the moment where you become a big time wide receiver in this league. And when you miss those moments, all of a sudden you're not that guy. And all of a sudden they're looking at Khalil Shakir. And all of a sudden they're looking at drafting Dalton Kincaid. And they move draft capital to draft him and move up. So that tells me a lot. Always follow the money. Yep. Always follow the money at the end of the day. And the Gabe Davis, and it's funny because like Andrew Erickson, who I work with, is starting to get into Davis again. We had Jamie Eisenberg on the show last week, and he was talking about, he drafted him in the mock draft show we did. And he was talking him up too. I get it, but not at that ADP, because to me, there's just far better investments I can make.
Yep. I like it. Now, the maybe for the Buffalo Bills, when I was looking at the offense, there was just so many options. James Cook, Damian Harris coming over from the New England Patriots, the Dalton Kincaid, the tight end that they drafted, like you said, follow the money. But for me, you mentioned them there. It's Khalil Shakir. Buffalo is starving for that playmaker outside of Stephon Diggs. And as much as people want it to be Gabe Davis, the second-year wideout in Khalil Shakir has the opportunity to be that for the Buffalo Bills. Didn't have an overly productive rookie season, but saw some promising numbers in his route participation with 171, his yards per reception with 16.1 yards per reception. It's a great number, but the sample size, again, is very small. Currently the leader for the wide receiver 3 position with Isaiah McKenzie moving over to the Indianapolis Colts. His competition ahead of him is Deontay Hardy, who they signed from the New Orleans Saints, and Trent Sherfield, who they brought in from the Miami Dolphins. He is a maybe because the people in front of him would need a few things to go his way to gain any kind of true relevancy in that Buffalo Bills offense. Another one of those guys that could be late round stashes, try to beat the waiver wire first weeks kind of guy. If anything happens to Davis or Diggs, his value will absolutely skyrocket in that Buffalo Bills offense. He's got the trust from Josh Allen that is built up through the spring, which could equal more opportunity with that percentage of route runs. If any kind of things like that increase with the subtraction of Isaiah McKenzie, Khalil Shakir could be a beautiful bench stash for you heading into the 2023 season. So keep your eye on Khalil Shakir. That is the must bust and maybe for the AFC East with Joe Pisapia from FantasyPros. We covered the New England Patriots. Our must draft is Ramondre Stevenson, bust Mac Jones, and maybe is DeMario Pop Douglas. From the Miami Dolphins, we got the must of Tyreek Hill, bust of Devon Achane, and maybe was Tua Tagovailoa. For the New York Jets, it was Garrett Wilson, and the bust was Tyler Conklin. Maybe was Aaron Rodgers. And for the Buffalo Bills, your must-draft player is Josh Allen. Your bust is Gabe Davis, and the maybe is Khalil Shakir. Now, Joe, I got to ask you before we move on to our next segment here, with the QBs being drafted, their ADP rising a little bit from this past year, are you comfortable reaching up for Josh Allen? In a one QB league.
In a single QB league, my mindset is this. I think there is an elite tier. I think those top 5 guys, pretty much, maybe you could, call it 6. They're special in terms of fantasy productivity. So I like to watch when that run begins and then kind of get in on it towards the end. And then if it gets away from me, then I've got plan B. But I think that the strong plan is to, if you get Lamar at a discount or maybe Joe Burrow at a discount, which I just got yesterday, which I'm very happy about, I'll take that. Like I will take that discount any day of the week. Because I do think then this is why, again, Blackbook stuff is so important. You see the relative position value drop off. Then you get to the guys who are just really good, solid QB1s. The Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herberts, like those guys are the fantasy league average QB1s. So after that, there's no sense to waste a pick on any other guys. I mean, I can understand the upside of a guy like Deshaun Watson because he does have top 5 upside because you've seen it before if he gets back to that guy. But you could just as easily take a Kirk Cousins later, who is basically, free quarterback at the end, who was QB9 last year. And at the end of the day, that'll do. And you could take Anthony Richardson for fun and see if he works out and pair those two guys together. Get a little boring, get a little really boring, incredibly boring Kirk Cousins and a really, really exciting, potentially Anthony Richardson. And either way, you're covered.
Yeah. I wonder what Kirk Cousins is going to put into that cavity in his room once he retires and doesn't end with a Lombardi trophy.
I don't know.
Kind of a bad omen, I would say, his contractor building that little cavity for him. But speaking of the Black Book, we have the author with us here tonight. It is one of the most comprehensive pieces of fantasy football work, a 20-time #1 bestseller, a book that is the one-stop cover all with IDP rankings, player profiles, rookie profiles, a preview into the 24 class, a book that is going to give you a leg up on all your competitors. Joe, with everything that this book has covered, when do you start the process of putting it all together?
April. Here's the thing, it's funny because April is really the beginning of that process. And I have a great group of people, Derek Brown, Andrew Erickson, Scott Bogman, Thor Nystrom, Chris Meany. I mean, the list goes on and on. These are some of the best there is. And, we go through the draft, and once the draft is compiled, we put everything together, and the book's always out in June. But unlike the other things too, we have an advantage. What you see out on the newsstands or the supermarket, those are locked in. I just did an update yesterday on the Fantasy Black Book. So if you're buying it today or tomorrow, you're gonna have the most up-to-date stuff. We do cheat sheets for relative position value that are updated. So once you pay for the cheat sheet, every time I make an update, you get the update. So that's how you stay ahead of the curve when there are injuries and things like that. Because that's the downsides of the print media, right? Is once it's out, it's out. Well, because it's direct to consumer on Amazon, I can make the changes. Hopkins is in Tennessee in the Black Book. I'm waiting for Dalvin Cook. I thought I'd be able to make that update at some point in the last 2 months, but I haven't yet. But and it's got, we have the most comprehensive dynasty coverage. We have the most comprehensive IDP coverage. We also have the most strategy, and I think people don't talk enough about strategy. We have standalone chapters just for strategy and high stakes stuff too, like NFFC. Billy Wasowski writes that, and Billy has won multiple first place finishes in NFFC. He's won hundreds of thousands of dollars. So instead of me telling you how to do it, I want that guy telling you how to do it. I'm pretty good, but that's guy who's really taken down those big time NFFC kind of high stakes leagues. So that to me is why the Black Book is very different, because I think it's so, it's giving you relative position value because rankings are good, tiers are better, quantified rankings. That's how you create a strategy. Building core roster strength, that's how you create dominance. And I think it's a way that when people get it for the first time, they go, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of doing this, or I wish I should be doing this. And then obviously people have had success because it's been around a long time and we just keep crushing it. And I'm very grateful for that. But it's out there on Amazon right now. Go get it. How's that for a sales pitch? It's fun, right?
I love it. I love it. I love the Scott Bogman tight end tiers. He has the Travis Kelce tier, the after Kelce tier, the disappointment tier. I gotta take one tier, youth movement tier, and old.
We have fun, man. Look,
I love
Scott's a fun dude. He's a good friend of mine. D-Bro's a good friend of mine too. D-Bro's writing is always incredibly smart and incredibly entertaining. But like, these are people, they eat, sleep, and drink this, and that's, I think some of the difference too. And what's great is like, there's lots of different voices out there. What's nice about the Black Book is we try to make it that one thing, whether you're new to fantasy, whether you are a grizzled veteran to fantasy, or if you're somebody who's in multiple leagues. It's such a helpful tool that can it really does elevate, I think, your game to the next level. And I think that's what we're all trying to do is, everybody's at a higher level now because information's at a much higher spoon-fed level. Every host site's giving you all this news and these breakdowns and things like that. So how do you separate yourself? Relative position value. That's how you separate yourself, which is way better than VBD because value-based drafting is talking about guys as a whole. I'm talking about RB1 as a position.
Yeah.
RB2 as a position. Most guys are going to have a wide receiver one on their team. Well, if you give me AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb to start, I've got 2 wide receiver ones. It means one of them's in that wide receiver 2 spot. So I'm going to be more productive than the other people in my league. That's how you start to create winning rosters.
Yeah. I've been finding that a lot too with drafts that I've been in, is the drop of the running back and being able to get 3 RB1s on my squad and then looking at it and just being content with sitting with 3 to 4 RB1s, a top end RB2 there, and then having some, back end wide receiver 2s to fill those wide receiver slots. I'm okay with that, knowing that I got the positional advantage when it comes to running backs. I got my 2 starting running backs are RB1s, and I got 2 RB1s in my flex. I'm more than happy with that. So I dig it. We got one last trade question before we wrap. We got to get out of here. Let the Dynasty 365 crew in. Jake SF, Dynasty with contracts. So Rhett, you may want to chime in this. You are the contracts guy. 1 QB, half PPR. I have Allen and Burrow, Allen and Tyreek for Chase and Godwin or Deontay. Am I giving up too much for Chase? Chase is under contract for 4 more years. Hill and Allen at 2.
Okay, so he's getting Chase for 4 more years, and it looks like he's giving Josh Allen and Tyreek for Chase and Godwin. And we're talking Dynasty. The kicker here is Jamar Chase is one of the top 3 Dynasty assets, period. The kicker here is, what's the rest of the league look like at that quarterback position?
Yeah.
He has Joe Burrow, he says. So in that situation, if he's giving up a 29-year-old Tyreek Hill and he's keeping Joe Burrow and he gets the Burrow Jamar Chase stack, I think he does it. I think he has to.
100% yes.
Yeah.
100% yes. And look, don't take Godwin, take Deontay Johnson, because Godwin's going nowhere in that offense. Deontay's going to get a ton of volume. At least there's a chance he bounces back. Plus they had to pay him. So he's on a contract. So they're going to throw the ball at him because they're paying him. Again, follow the money. But 100% take that. You've got Joe Burrow already. It's a single quarterback league. If this was super flex, it's a way more complicated situation. But single quarterback league, you've got Joe Burrow. He's going to be around the league for 10 years. Who knows? He might even age better potentially than Josh Allen, because of style of play. So I know it's different with the contracts, but I'm taking Chase. Chase is the one guy in Dynasty anyway, especially in that format. 100%. I don't care if you got Pickens. Jake, I don't care if you got Pickens too. I don't care. Don't take Godwin. It's going to be dead weight. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And Jake, by the way, find me on Twitter, DM me about the salary cap dynasty stuff. It's my deep dive. It's my passion. Let's get into it, bud, for real.
Yeah, Rhett's the contract guy here at Fourth and Frames. Joe, that's the show. We really, really appreciate your time with everything you got going on. I know you're a busy, busy man. But something we do here is we're going to give you the frame, let the people know what you got going on inside of fantasy sports, outside of fantasy sports. The frame is yours.
Well, first off, guys, thanks. This was really fun. It was great to be on the show. Anytime you need me, let me know. It's probably easier. I would say not to find me. That's probably easier. But you can always check me out on Fantasy Pros. I'll also be hosting the Betting Pros NFL show this year, which is going to be huge on our YouTube channel. So check that out. We're taking that Betting Pros channel to the next level this year. You can catch me every single Sunday over on Sports Grid TV, which is on Amazon now, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So this beautiful face in front of millions of people every weekend. That's a fun time, but it's 2 hours of fantasy talk. You're not going to get that on television anywhere at that high level. And it's of course, Joe Pisapia 17. Go get the Blackbook over on Amazon right now. Updated for August. Let's go, baby. And great stuff today, guys. It's fun to hang out and talk football.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For Rhett at Our Manual Sports, I'm Chris Battistel. Jorge, get well soon. Toodles.